Our Take kicks off a three-part series called Women in the Digital World. My guest co-host, Kelly Smith-Beatty, and I welcome Patricia Scarborough as well as John Krant. Patricia was not using social media, but is now embracing it, and she is looking for a job. She's going to tell us a little bit about that. And John Krant is a career coach and speaker and author of Self-Recruiter, Changing the Rules, How to Be Your Own Recruiter and Ride the Economic Crisis to Your Next Career Challenge. Well, John, I'm going to quickly start with you. I would imagine that this has got to be a very, very difficult time for a lot of people.
You know, it really is. I mean, I think that the challenges of what's gone on with the economy have turned the whole job search arena upside down. You know, I have folks that have had the initiative to even walk in the door to introduce themselves, and then they get turned away at the door these days. Yet we have an opportunity, essentially, with our digital presence to change that equation and really level the playing field and open up the avenues of access in our job search.
Patricia, are you as optimistic as John is when he talks about the employment landscape? I understand that you're making a career transition from retail executive to wanting to work for a not-for-profit organization. Do you see this as just an exciting, wonderful time for you?
I do, actually, the importance of embracing social media as well, because that's how we get ourselves to be visible. It's awareness and exposure, and it's the times we're living in. The traditional job search is no longer. Yeah. And so certainly we have to embrace social media and be a little more technology savvy.
John, what is the best digital platform that people should be using when they're out trying to market themselves, looking for a job?
You know, it can be distracting. There's so many digital platforms, but in job search, that place right now is really LinkedIn. From my view at least, it is really where we have to nurture and develop our online presence of credibility. You know, if we don't exist online today in our careers, we don't exist. They're going to look at us if we're down to, say, the few folks they're seriously considering. Then they're going to take our name and they're going to Google it. So, you know, gosh help us if we're not controlling what we're doing on the internet. But then they'll take it over to LinkedIn. And if we don't really have the right presentation of what we've contributed, how we've accomplished certain challenges over the course of our career, that'll get missed.
So you're saying LinkedIn over, say, a monsters.com or other kind of job search website? You
know, the Monster, Career Builder, all these websites, they have their place in job search. But if you're on them, specifically you're looked at as someone searching for a job, and that can have a negative side to it as well. We tend to like people that are employed. And yet LinkedIn is not really about that. It is about nurturing what you offer professionally, whether you're looking for work or not. And that's a much more interesting story if you tell it the right way.
And I understand that we have a LinkedIn graphic right now. I understand that you also worked with Patricia when it came to her resume.
Yes.
So I want to quickly just go over some of the things, John, that you suggest should be on your LinkedIn profile. You say create an engaging profile, jazz up your headline, and energize your summary. Talk a little bit about these 3 points.
You know, there's a lot of resistance to whether I should include a picture or not on LinkedIn, and I know all the issues that surround potentially having a picture. But there's only 2 reasons we get hired, assuming we're capable for the role. If we're capable for the role, the reasons we get hired are chemistry, number 1, and confidence, number 2. And those are elements we can begin to build right away, even from the first impression of the picture. Do we have the drive and energy, enthusiasm and passion and presence that they're looking for? Can they make an instant connection with us? And then, of course, what you say in your small headline, which to me is really the 140-character resume, that little area that says, who are you? Why are you unique in your profession?
Absolutely.
And then our summary area is this wonderful area that is really large as far as a real estate perspective, but that's where we can begin to control and disseminate our story. You know, we've fallen in the trap in the past of including everything in the kitchen sink. They might like me for this, they might like me for that. But that's a dangerous road that dilutes our value. If we simply figure out what our value is, distill it down to its very essence, then it becomes a very compelling telling of our story.
And Patricia, you had a resume, and then John looked at it. What were the differences in the resume that you had prepared and then John had reviewed?
The difference in the resume I prepared and what John did for me, he simplified and had all the key words jumping out at anyone who would come in contact with my resume and in a split second would make a decision, this is someone I would love to see, opposed to having to read through and not taking the time in this economy to read through a wordy resume. So John was very effective in getting my resume up to date so that it would quickly capture the attention of that person.
So you tighten the copy.
Yep.
You would, I'm assuming, make the resume only one page, no matter how long you've been in your particular career field.
That is
Even if you've
correct.
got a 19, 20 years on the
Yes.
job, you got to
Yes.
you got to condense it to one page.
Yes.
And then I understand that you want for the place positioning to be at the top of the resume. Was that something that you also had to change?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
had a lot that you had to change, and we're actually looking at the resume now. I believe, is this the before resume, or is this the after?
This
This is the after.
This is the after resume. So this is now one page.
Yes.
The place positioning is at the top, and I understand you also had to edit your accomplishments. So there are certain things that you have to decide, you personally decide, are the most important. But then, isn't that kind of difficult when it's your resume? How do you decide what you think is the most important accomplishment, because you've accomplished them all?
Well, at the same time, you know, in the accomplishments, it's what's priority to you and what you were most passionate about, what felt really rewarding to you. And although all of the accomplishments did, I pretty much scored them and then made that decision.
John, there was a story that was out not too long ago about a woman, an African-American woman, who talked about how she made a duplicate resume, but changed the name to something that she considered less ethnic. Exact same resume, and the difference was is that she found out that she got more phone calls and more emails based on the really false resume, even though it was the same resume, but it was an artificial name.
Sure.
How does someone even deal with that? I mean, if your name is your name.
I mean, it's very, very tough. I mean, we can't change who we are at essence. I think what you have to focus on is how people make their decision. And while we may fall in the trap of choosing people that seem familiar, maybe that's really what we're experiencing is people are naturally migrating toward who's familiar to them. Well, we have to bridge that gap, and we can do it with how we tell our story, how we draw people in and get them excited. You know, whether it's the resume or whether it's the LinkedIn profile, it's about how do you create interest and excitement for what you've done so they just have to speak with you.
You use the word story, which I, as a PR branding person, love, but it is about that. And we have a lot of people in the market right now who are trying to switch careers.
Sure.
So talk about the story. How do you explain the transferable skill set? She's going from retail, obviously interested into moving into nonprofit. How do you take something that may not at face value be one and the same, but how do you make that story translate?
Well, I think the way it translates is you focus in on what you are most proud of and most excited about, and that is something that's transferable. You know, you look at Patricia's background, she has a stunning background, and you sit and look, well, why would a nonprofit, if you've been in the commercial world, why would a nonprofit want all of this expertise? Well, nonprofits and foundations need that commercial experience, and they're also full of a lot of folks that have been in nonprofit and foundation for a long time, so they don't necessarily have the commercial a skill that someone like Patricia brings to the table. That is a very attractive skill set. You don't have to only portray yourself as exactly like it, but this is my interest and this is what I bring to the table.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to say thank you to you all for joining us, particularly the fact that this is our first part in our three-part Digital World series. Thank you,
Great.
John Krant, a career coach, as well as Patricia Scarborough. We certainly wish you the best
Good
of
luck
luck
to
Thank you.
in your job search. I have no doubt that you will
We'll be
squarely
seeing you
on
in
your feet.
nonprofit land soon.
And thank you, Kelly Smith Beatty,
pleasure.
joining me once again as guest co-host. You know, I'm going to ask you, will you come back?
Anytime.
You're here. Wonderful. Thank you all. I'm Christina Brown, and you are watching Our Take.